As a leader, if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I'm not doing that, well, then this is the wrong podcast for you. Because like, if you're not leading with care and concern and love, if any one of your people is suffering or struggling and that doesn't weigh on you, then you might want to reevaluate why you're in leadership. Patsy, hello.
Patrick.
Here we are, back for another episode and kicking off a series of episodes on the hidden behaviors that are killing execution. Is that an accurate way of expressing this?
Yes, I think so.
So the hidden behaviors that are killing execution. And these are very common behaviors, I would think, on almost any team. Frankly, I would even say, I think these are always possible in any team dynamic. Wherever you have collections of people, you have the potential for every one of these behaviors that may not always be overt, but are covert, hidden behaviors that are ultimately going to kill your ability to execute as an organization.
Some of them may be intentional, but many of them are unintentional, just human responses to situations we don't really know what to do with, right?
Human responses, and it isn't the response necessarily these are normal human responses. It's not the response. The response is problematic, but what's way more problematic is when those responses go unmanaged or unchecked.
Exactly. And what are the consequences of that, Patrick?
Well, it kills execution. So I guess that's the end of the series. We just told them.
It does kill execution. And when they go unnoticed or unnamed, then they're not addressed. And then they become, we're just talking, cultural norms. So then any behaviors that aren't supporting execution or aren't supporting, living our core values, then if one's tolerated, another's tolerated, and then all of a sudden you have a lot of seemingly intentional or unintentional, doesn't really matter, behaviors that aren't really getting you where you want to go, nor creating because at the foundation of everything, right, teams, is our relationships. We forget about that part.
Business is done on the backs of relationships. But as you were saying that, what comes to mind is a kind of a theme we've talked about throughout this podcast, is that these hidden behavior problems, when left unchecked, often manifest themselves in other ways that distract you from the root of the issue. Like that's where if you get we said that growth doesn't expose issues. Growth doesn't create issues. This is right on the heels of some recent episodes. It creates, certainly tests the system, but it doesn't create as many issues as it exposes. Those issues were there the whole time. Whereas I think this is very similar. These kind of behavioral issues, I don't know what else to call them, behavioral, cultural misalignments, I don't know what you want to call them, these bad behaviors. Let's call them bad behaviors. I know we hate to say good and bad. Maybe I'll take that. Can I rescind that? Of course I can. It's our show. I can do whatever the heck I want. But okay. So let's just get into today's topic if you're cool. Unless you were going to say something.
The only thing I was going to say is that once you and I started identifying behaviors that don't support execution, and all its ramifications, it was being. We not only identified one, we have identified two, then three, then four, then five. So they're kind of rampant. And to reiterate what you just said, if they are indications of what's missing in an organization to really execute, but also to create a foundation of how do we work well together? How do we create together what we want to create? So,
yeah. And I would say, let's go back to, you've heard us say before, we've talked ad nauseum about, right, the three execution drivers. There's that strategic alignment. We've covered that. We've talked a lot about leadership readiness, leadership development. And then the third execution driver is high performance teams. Again, I think the fact that high performance teams have human beings on them means you are going to see these behaviors trying to emerge in high performance teams. They're anywhere you have collections of people, you have the potential for these issues. But on high performance teams, those teams are clear about the expectations, the norms, the standards, right, and they communicate those, and people hold themselves accountable so that when these behaviors emerge, they're addressed and they're dealt with, they're resolved, so that the team can get back to executing, can get back to winning. And I think what you really, you play that out, what you see on high performing teams is where people can't change that behavior, they're not part of the team very long. So.
And I know we're going to get into one specific one very quickly, but what the distinction you just made is that it is likely possible for people to change their behaviors. So it is not like I'm, 5'5" and I can't really change that. The more that we label people as something, this behavior, then it becomes a perception that it's unchangeable. But what you just said is very critical, is that with the right intent and hopefully with some coaching or difficult conversations, people have the opportunity to choose whether they can change their behaviors or not.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you explicitly stated that, because I think certainly for today's behavior and for each subsequent one, it would be very easy to hear this behavior and immediately have a face to go with it.
Or one or two or three,
Like,
right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or like, oh, I know that
Yeah.
person, or that's this person in our organization, or that's that person in our organization. But when you remember that every one of us has the potential to behave in this way, and to your point, you explicitly state, by separating the person from the behavior, we leave open the possibility that a new behavior is possible. The moment, this is a pet peeve for me, whenever teams or leaders will, we've talked before about the high performing asshole, right? The person that is maybe the top salesperson that is just a cultural misfit, and everybody hates working with that person, and they're a lone wolf, but we just say, well, that's just who they are, right? That's just who that person is. That is, the moment you say that about someone, you rob them of the chance of growing and getting better, and B, you're signing up for more of the same every single day, instead of leaving open the possibility that, actually, that's not who that person is. That's how they're choosing to behave, and that's so important. So that's kind of a lead into, again, what's one of my very, I have been itching to do this topic for a long time. You know that.
I do know that.
It's the topic of passive aggressiveness or passive aggression. I will probably use those interchangeably throughout this episode, because years ago, I learned a visual, we have talked about this before, I'm a visual person. I learned a model that helps me understand what passive aggression is and the conditions that create it. So I'll get there in a minute. But again, Patsy, I mean, okay. So when I say passive aggressive, like, can you in your own mind, whether it's family or somebody in the business, I don't know, what comes to mind for you when you hear passive aggressiveness or passive aggression? Because I don't want to, I can go off on a 15, 20 minute, like, just exposition on the topic. I want to make sure that I'm bringing you along with us.
I often think I don't know what version of this person is going to show up next. Are they going to be right in my face, or are they going to be so unavailable that I can't reach them? It's flips, and it's constantly flipping between the same sides, two different sides of the same coin.
So it's like inauthenticity. Is that like a lack of or stability?
It's almost like being a muse or a jokester or something. It's like, just as soon as I think I'm going to get one thing, I get the other. So I never know who's going to show up next. So it keeps me
Yeah.
a little on guard.
Yeah. So, if you've ever if you've ever worked on a team with someone who's mastered the art of passive aggression, or right, somebody who that is, I'll often say, like, that's their go-to move. But again, we like to label people as passive aggressive. First of all, let's step back, because passive aggression or passive aggressiveness is an umbrella label that really describes it encompasses a whole lot of different behaviors. It manifests itself in a variety of ways. Like, for instance, I'll run through some, Patsy, and then you add to it. So, passive aggression, you will see it a lot as, right, that's that biting sarcasm that somebody, that and I always go to the visual of the meeting. Everybody's sitting around the table, and we're having a conversation that's moving the business forward, or we're doing updates, whatever, and somebody says something passive aggressive, and it's like that really awkward, uncomfortable. Since I'm old, I think of the scratchy needle on the record that just, like, the music stops and nobody moves and nobody knows what to do. And you just see, like, eyes going back and forth, or people might look at the leader and there's this awkward silence. And then somebody at some point, often the leader will say, okay, moving on, like, or let's keep going, or we're not going to address that now. It's that those are the to me, that's how I envision. It's that uncomfortable awkwardness of somebody saying or doing something that clearly says, I'm bottled up. Like, it's something ugly is coming out in a less than healthy way. Let's say it that way. And so as I think about how those unhealthy ways that what I'm bottling up can come out, it can come out in that biting sarcasm. It can come out in, interestingly enough, it can come out the opposite, silent treatment.
That's what I was thinking of.
I can just, like, I'm just going to shut down. I'm not going to say anything. It can come out in, it can be an angry outburst, which might seem not very passive, might seem more aggressive, but the fact that it comes out with force indicates it had been building. So there was some passivity that led to the volcano erupting. There are, I can get up and storm out of the room. I mean, you've had that before, right? Have you ever been in a meeting where somebody was like, or on a video call where somebody's like, screw this, I'm out. And they just hang up and they disappear. And again, everybody else is kind of left going, what was that? And there's the awkward silence until somebody goes, okay, what do you, I can see your...
No, but which is probably you're talking about a wide variety of behaviors. I'm more familiar with the silent treatment, where silence is worth 1,000 words, right? It's like in Technicolor with no words.
Yep.
But what you're pointing to is the awkwardness of people not knowing what to do with whatever that behavior is that you just described. And most of the time, people do exactly what you said. All the oxygen goes out of the room or off the call. And then somebody says, basically, in air quotes, let's forget this and let's move on, instead of really addressing it.
Right. Yep. And if you think about it, passive aggression can also manifest. I'm taking it back to the office, like ways that it manifests itself. It's that gossip is gossip or venting is 100% a form of it's a passive aggressive behavior. I'm releasing what I'm bottling up. I'm releasing the tension in an unhealthy way. We've covered the topic before, but I'm releasing it in an unhealthy way, rather than a healthy way. I could be actively working against you. You see that in I can actively be working to subvert your success. That is a form of passive aggression, because you don't know that I'm like all bottled up inside, and I'm finding an unhealthy way to channel it by tearing you down or delaying working on whatever it is that you see that, right? And handoffs in the workplace where I'm dependent on you. Actually, it's a great story. It's a great story. 25 years, this is silly. This is passive aggression. 25 years ago, somehow in a meeting, I said something that I didn't even, somehow I offended the IT person. And I found out like a year later that as a result, he kept setting up my printer in my office to the bottom of the list. As silly as that sounds. And the number of times where I had to call and say, hey, I'm just checking, and I didn't even know that I had angered him. And when I found out, it was one of those man, if you had told me,
Exactly.
first of all, I couldn't even remember what it was that I said, but if I knew that, I would have apologized. But I found out through a third party that he was angry at me for a year and kept pushing my work to the bottom of the list. So, this is real stuff. People make decisions like that. And let's tie this back to execution. And then I will get into the model, because it's one of my favorite things to talk about. Think about execution in the workplace. When passive aggression is prevalent or prominent in an organization, and you have people working against each other, breaking down communication and trust by venting and gossiping, not talking to each other, right, withdrawing, the silent treatment, or having those angry outbursts that cause issues that need to be then break relationships, all of those things work together. How is that going to impact your execution? It's 100% impacts your ability to execute. It kills execution.
Absolutely. So before you get to your model, why does it happen? I mean, you started mentioning a few things, but why does it happen?
Yeah, well, see, the model helps me explain it. So that is a good lead-in. Here's the visual. This is the model that I learned probably, like I said, 15 years ago, and I have brought it to every leader that I've worked with, and I say, just memorize this. So this is the visual. Passive aggression or passive aggressive behavior. Passive aggression is the prison halfway between strong negative emotion and silence. And the lock to that prison is on the inside. So I'll say it again. Passive aggression is the prison halfway between strong negative emotion and silence, and the lock is on the inside. Now let's unpack that. So on one end of the spectrum is some strong negative emotion, frustration, disappointment, unmet expectations, bitterness, embarrassment, right? Guilt, disappointment. I've got some strong negative emotion on one end. And on the other end is silence, meaning I'm not giving voice to it. I'm not having a conversation with you, Patsy, to say, hey, can we talk about that meeting where what you said, when you did that, that made me feel, I was embarrassed. I was humiliated. Or, hey, can we talk about, hey, why isn't my printer getting set up? Well, if I'm being honest, you said this or you did this, and that really pissed me off. So, but instead of having that conversation, go back to that example, I said or did something that created some strong negative emotion in that person, in that IT person. He chose silence, and by choosing silence, he locked himself in the prison that's halfway between. And in that prison, we think we're doing a great job of not letting it out, but that strong negative emotion builds, and it comes out in those ways that we've talked about, where it builds and builds and builds into an emotional outburst. It builds into me just withdrawing from you completely. It builds into me gossiping or venting about you or actively subverting your success. So in that prison, I stew, the emotion builds, I'm not giving voice to it, and it's going to come out in passive aggressive ways. Now, the last part of that model is that the lock is on the inside, which means the only person who can let me out of the prison when I'm in there, when I'm holding on to some strong negative emotion and I have chosen silence, I willingly enter into the prison And the only way I can come out is by unlocking it and allowing myself out, choosing to come out by, frankly, I'll say there are really only two ways. You know this by now, Patsy. I oversimplify everything. There are really only two ways that you can release yourself from that prison. The first is by giving voice to it in a healthy way. Again, like I said, like, Patsy, can we talk about this project and how I was counting on you for your piece of it, and what you sent me was like so not what I expected, and now I'm having to work extra hours and nights and weekends just to pull it up to like this. So, but if I don't do that, I'm stewing on my nights and weekends, holding it against you. You have no idea. And it's going to come out in passive aggressive ways when I see you. So I either have to give voice to it. This is using the tools that we've talked about before, having good, healthy conflict, good conversations where we listen, where we communicate, we share, we empty, we resolve, we align and we move forward. So either I have to give voice to it, or this is my only other option. It's like, and this may sound, I don't know, silly or universe kind of, it's true forgiveness, like real forgiveness, which is not, I forgive you this time. And it's not, you've heard me say this before, it's definitely not, you know what, I'm just going to let this go. That's not forgiveness. Let this go means I'm not going to deal with it now. I'm not going to give voice to it in a healthy way. I'm not going to resolve this. I'm going to put this back here in a pile that when it grows big enough, Patsy, I'm going to come back to you and say, you always do this. You did it then, and you did it then, and you did it now, and you did it here. And remember, you did it then. So I didn't let any of that stuff go. I just like built a mountain that I could throw at you, which is, by the way, that is a passive aggressive behavior. I'm not dealing with it in the moment. I'm locking myself in that prison. It's going to build and build and build until it comes out, directed at you in an angry outburst. And if I'm you on the receiving end of that, I'd expect you to go, well, why didn't you say something? Like, that's a you problem. I mean, so it's an us problem now, but man, if you had just told me, we could have dealt with this like one issue at a time instead of now dealing with it as a mountain of issues. All right, so let me pause.
So,
What do you think?
in total agreement. You know, the other place that we can take that anger and let it build is towards ourselves, so we could end up being sick or ill or depressed.
Mm-hmm.
So that caged up energy goes in one direction or the other, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of a bird in a cage. You open the door, the bird flies free. When we're in our own self-imposed prison, we don't even know we have a lock, much less a key. So once we go, oh, I might be able to unlock myself, but it's a process, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's some tools which may be common to any of these behaviors we're going to end up discussing, but some tools of self-discovery and self-development, you know, emotional intelligence comes to mind,
Yes.
is to say, is to own that we have a reaction, period, or to own that we have some strong emotions.
Yeah. So here's what's interesting about that when you say EQ. It's important to remember again, we label people as passive aggressive, but when you understand those conditions, every one of us probably this week has had some strong negative emotion or negative feeling, negative reaction, unmet expectations, some embarrassment that happened with somebody, and we chose not to give voice to it in the moment or since it happened. And in doing so, we willingly walk into that prison where it will build. It may not build immediately, but in that prison, it just builds and builds and builds to the point where it then ultimately becomes, it comes out in those passive aggressive ways. So like the conditions, I share that for two reasons. And here's how I'll bring it back to the EQ. as a leader, whenever I coach this concept, I want the leader to understand. I want everybody to understand. You need to use this. I need to use this model two ways. One, I now have a tool that I can use when we're in that meeting and somebody says or does something that is passive aggressive. I now know when I see it, rather than go, oh crap, what do I do? And everybody's looking to me for like, what do you do? I now know, okay, that person has locked themselves in a prison. They're halfway between some strong negative emotion, and they're not sharing it they're not giving voice to it. They're not giving voice to it in a healthy way. It's coming out in a passive aggressive way. I could meet their passive aggression with my own anger, or I can shut them down, but that's never going to create the environment where somebody is willing to take the risk to come out and give voice to it. So now when I see it in a room, and I don't always catch it, but it's that EQ, it's that self-awareness. When I hear it or see it, rather than pull back and withdraw, or like you have that visceral reaction of just trying to get as far away from it as possible, I try to lean in and say, all right, hey, hold on a second. I can clearly tell that you are frustrated by something. Let's talk about it. What's going on? Like, open up. And then that's where using the tools that we've been talking about for forever. Now, the person, just because I create space for somebody to come out of the prison, doesn't mean they're going to.
Exactly.
Right. But they're still there. I now know they're still there, and they may not come out in that moment, but as the leader, I have to commit to not leaving somebody there, because it's only going to come out in passive aggressive ways. That's where I say, like, if that person is left in that prison, it's going to kill their ability to execute with the organization. It's in all the ways that we've talked about.
Yes, and I'm going to push back on a couple of things. One is, I think you made this statement that we choose to stay in our prisons. Most of the time, certainly in many of the behaviors we're going to be talking about in this series, people aren't even aware until they get sick or reprimanded or just feel crummy that they're there. So I would say it's more a choice to be curious, once you recognize it, to be curious about how do I get myself out, and it is a process. And certainly you as the leader, or you as the person at the table, or person that cares about this other person can offer, or can help them help me if I'm the one that's being passive aggressive, which that's one of my common behaviors. Can help me become aware, which is the first step. I got to become aware that what I'm doing is not supporting what I care about, nor what we care about as a team.
Right.
So it is a ongoing commitment and dialogue between two people.
Yes.
To say, I see you. For you, I see you. What's going on? I care about you. You can meet people where they're at, and me.
Yes.
To what I call a counterintuitive move, to lean into the discomfort of saying, oh crap, I have locked myself in a prison, and I do have some strong feelings. And to tell you the truth, I don't like being like this very much.
Yeah. I've never met anybody who's locked themselves in that prison and happy about it. Like it's why it's coming out. It may be safer,
exactly,
but it's not comfortable.
Exactly,
it's not comfortable, right? And that's, to me, the fact that the pressure is building, and it's not being released in healthy ways that communicate the fact that I'm hurt matters. The fact that I was offended or embarrassed or disappointed, or the fact that my expectations weren't met matters. That's the role of the leader. Again, as a leader, I can make it, if you withdraw and I come at you with my guns up, like, Patsy, you always do this. Why are you doing that? God, when you do that, it just kills the whole meeting. God, did you see everybody's reaction? I mean, what's that going to do? All that does is reinforce.
Totally.
It's safer in there. Not necessarily happy, but it's safer in there. And that's why, as a leader, when you see it, that's where empathy has to come in. That's where like love and care. And if as a leader, if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I'm not doing that, well, then this is the wrong podcast for you. Because like, if you're not leading with care and concern and love, if any one of your people is suffering or struggling and that doesn't weigh on you, this is clearly my opinion, not necessarily the opinion of our show or yours, but like, then you might want to reevaluate why you're in leadership, right? If you're in leadership for the authority or the title or the, great. If you're not in it for the people, I don't know how you can be successful. So when I see it, Patsy, when I see it in you, I want to, hey, hold on a second. I don't even have to agree with the reason you put yourself there, but I can still make space for you to give voice to it so you feel heard and seen and validated. And then we can address it. And each time we do that, the relationship gets stronger. And I would hope, because I promise you say like passive aggression is your move. That's all of our move. I do it. I've done it. We've been on calls where you have seen me have an angry outburst and then leave the meeting. Like this is like just exposing my own dirty laundry. We've had that. And what does that do? That kind of what I'm screaming. I've internalized this strong negative emotion. I don't know how to say it. I don't think it's going to get resolved. I'm locked in this prison. It's safer, but it's not comfortable. I would hope that in those moments, you would meet me with empathy. You said meet you where you are, as opposed to where I think you should be or where I want you to be. It's like, hey, like I almost envision this. Like, what if you got in my prison with me? Like, right? I mean, like, it's just, there's a part of the visual it's literally just dawning on me now. But like, if you knocked on the cell door and instead of trying to come out with me, if you just got in with me and just sat on the bench with me, it's just like sat with me in there, like, hey, yeah, I can't make you get out here. I can't make you get out of here, but I'm just not going to leave you alone.
But even what you're describing is trying to say advanced. I don't know the other word to use, but if we look at emotional intelligence, it requires a high degree of being self-aware.
Yep.
And then being willing to manage my own feelings and emotions. So then we're going to up the ante to be able to be aware of your emotions, or or the whole team's emotions. Because if it's a one-on-one interaction, it's one thing. If somebody's being passive aggressive and there's 15 people in the room, then you've got to. Then I've got to. If I'm the leader, I've got to manage my emotions about what will the other 14, 13. So it gets pretty.
Yeah.
Your the degree of emotional intelligence is required gets the ante gets the ball gets raised pretty quickly, and
yes,
and we're all going to miss that from time to time. So
100%.
Going back and repair, even to say, wow, Patrick, I'm really sorry. I came at you in that meeting, and that wasn't really what I wanted to do. I just had a strong reaction. I didn't manage it very well. But even that's pretty.
We are. I agree with you. We're talking about like high EQ stuff, but that's the leader that, to me, when I think about high performing teams, when I think about teams that execute, those are high EQ leaders. Right. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking this is hard, I go back to someone that I've been coaching for a couple of years who, I don't know, six months ago, I know I told you this, Patsy, I probably talked about it in this show, where he showed up one day. He's like just one challenge after another as a leader. And he just leans in and he goes, this leadership shit is hard. I was like, yes, it is. This leadership shit is hard. And again, it's like with the right tools, and to me, like you're right. I used to miss it a whole lot. I still don't catch the passive aggression all the time. And I know there are some who are listening who might say, yeah, if it happens in a room of 15, I'll probably let it go and address it outside. To me, if to me that's an opportunity. Again, everybody's different. Here's my and I have done this. I see that as, if we forge ahead in the meeting after that passive aggressive outburst from somebody, and we just pretend it didn't happen and we continue, we are not moving together in the present and fully aligned. First of all, we have lost one person. They're shut down. They're stuck right where they were. And the other 14 are all in their own heads dealing with the awkwardness of what happened. So yes, I as the leader can take the easy way out and say, you know what, why don't we talk about that later? Or I can actually model what I want everyone on my team to do, because every one of them is going to be in that prison at some point. I am going to be in that prison probably sometime in the next few days. Listen, I live with 3 women. I live with a wife and 2 adult daughters. And the number of times where I realize, okay, this is not a battle that is worth fighting. That is, I have to either resolve it internally, like true forgiveness, or I lock myself in that prison and it builds. And I tell you, this happens in my own home. So in that meeting, pausing the meeting to lean in. And I mean, like, the body language, I lean in towards the person to say, hey, I care about you. And I can clearly sense you're frustrated. Let's talk about it. What's going on? Like, safe space. What do you need to say? And then whatever they say, and this goes back to, I've probably talked about this before, the greatest line that I've ever learned when somebody tells you something that you don't want to hear is, thank you for telling me that. What else? Great. Well, I just think this project is stupid. Awesome. Thank you for telling me that. What else? And just like allow that person to one issue at a time or one statement. Forget how it looks. It can't be disrespectful to, as best you can. But frankly, what's more important? Like that it get out or that it come out in a professional, I just get it out. Let's just deal with it. We'll deal with the ramifications later. That's just my opinion.
But what you're demonstrating is the dynamics. So a relationship is 2 people, right?
Right.
So I didn't used to do this. I'm trying to do this more. When I bump up against something that I don't know what to do, sometimes I can acknowledge that this is an important issue and let's figure it out. But then I need a resource, be it a coach, be it somebody or somebody on my team, or somebody that's really good at this, or, there's a zillion resources online now. Because even what you just said is a new language for most of us.
Right.
Is leaning in. That's, that our body language is as important as the words that come up, maybe in my opinion, more so. So lean in.
Right.
It's not a natural reaction to lean in. It's a natural reaction to get the heck out of the room, energetically or
Yes.
otherwise.
Yes.
And so those are all kind of new actions or interactions that sometimes they work. It's not a one size fits all either. What worked with, Sally is not going to go work with Joe. And so we have to be willing to practice and make mistakes for the sake of, what we care about. I care about you.
Yeah.
I care about your performance. We care about this team. We care about this organization.
I think to me, I come back to that. It's so easy to meet passive aggression with your own passive aggression or even aggressive aggression. Like, hey, you come at me, I'm coming at you. But if you approach it, if you remember when you see it, that person has bottled themselves up. They have internalized some strong negative emotion, and it's not coming out in a way that they feel heard or listened to or validated, then rather than meet that with aggression, meet that with compassion, right? care and compassion to say, hey, again, I don't even have to agree with you, but I can still hate that you're in that place and want to see some peace for you, right? Want to see that. Well, again, bring it back to execution. If I've got an organization of people that are bottled up because they're internalizing frustrations because they don't feel like people are hearing them or caring, that is impacting our ability to execute. And any leader who says otherwise doesn't understand high performance teams. They just don't. And you can say people, no, they'll just, hey, I don't care. Just put your note, just shut up and do your job. Everything has a cost. Those people are not executing for you at the highest level, and they will leave you at the first opportunity. So that's going to impact your ability to execute.
And until they find that opportunity, if they choose to, our ability to make decisions slows down or becomes non-existent. So then there's some level of chaos.
That's right.
We've been talking about resistance, hidden or otherwise.
Yep.
Then we rework because we weren't very clear, or because I thought I was being clear, but I didn't check out with you. People are confused. They're what you talked about earlier. They're the water cooler conversations, however those show up. I don't trust you. So, and that person that's being passive aggressive might be the key, might have something for the whole team that's going to unlock things. And any one of those people at the table could have that. So if you think about all of those and all of those things I just mentioned, we all go, yep, been there, yep, been there, yep, been there. And then I'm not going to come to you as my team leader because you either don't address things or you do address them, but in the wrong way. And this happens, I bet some version of this. And as we go through other behaviors,
all the time,
and almost every meeting we're in.
I love it. You're so right. I want to finish the last thought I had, and then I'll because we're going on a longer episode. This is awesome. It's such a great topic. I'd love to unpack this one. I mentioned earlier, I always challenge leaders to view this model, to apply this model two ways. One, as the leader, when you're at the table with 15 people and anybody on your team exhibits one of those passive aggressive behaviors. Again, sometimes it's a matter of being perceptive. Maybe it's not that sarcastic comment. Maybe it's that they have completely withdrawn. And again, the safe thing for me to do as a leader is to just get through it and ask them afterwards, or I can lean in and say, Patsy, I know you have a lot to contribute on this topic. Let's talk. I don't want to. Okay. Tell me more. Like, right, how do I create a space where you feel seen and heard? Because to your point, it's so brilliant. You might have the piece of information. You might have a piece of the puzzle that we have been missing that just completes the whole picture. It's brilliant. I love that. So apply it first as the leader. But there is another way to apply it. And this is, again, I can speak from experience. Patsy, just airing my own dirty laundry. We've been on calls where I did have that angry outburst where the frustration built over time. I wasn't giving voice to it. In the moment I was doing that, I'm not going to deal with this now. I'll deal with it later. And then it would continue to build, and it would come out in ugly, aggressive ways. Sarcasm. Again, this is not a you thing. This is all of us. We're all capable of locking ourselves in. So it would come out. Remember, as a leader, you're not just shepherding a group of people who will occasionally do passive aggressive things that you might have to lean in and help unlock the prison for them. Remember that you too can choose to put yourself in that prison. I choose to put myself in that prison, no matter what level of the organization I am. As a CEO, as a frontline worker, I go there every time I have some strong negative emotion, and I choose not to give voice to it. So when it comes out, this is the second application. when I find myself, and it does require this EQ that you were talking about, Patsy, when I find myself being passive aggressive, when I find myself doing any behavior that I know is indicative of the fact that I'm holding on to something, I've internalized something, and I'm not giving voice to it, the lock is on the inside of my own prison. And I have to figure out, who do I need to have a conversation with? What do I need to do? Or who do I need to forgive? And to me, that's forgive, I talked about this, is different from that. Like, I'm going to just not deal with this now, or I'm going to let it go. We never let it go. Forgiveness means I'm truly releasing you of any obligation. I'm not going to hold this against you. I'm not going to bring it up. It's out of my mind, and I will never hold this against you. I will never reference it when you do it again and again and again, which is really freaking hard. It's not, frankly, that's not what I actually advocate. Most of the time I advocate for, like you're going to have a conversation where I will advocate the forgiveness pieces. What happens when the person that I'm holding on to, the person I'm in prison over, is not even around anymore? Like, and by the way, it's important to understand, this is not only at work, this is prevalent at home. If your spouse, if you're listening, if you got a spouse whose go-to move is passive aggression, rather than meet it with aggressiveness or your own passive aggression, how about leaning in and asking, hey, all right, let's talk. Like, what you're clearly upset about some stuff. Like, what's going on? Let's talk, get it out. And then whatever you hear, the answer is, thank you for telling me that. What else? Just get it out. So recognize there are opportunities for you to lead people on your team who are in that prison. And when you find yourself in that prison, model it by having a conversation, have the difficult conversations. Like, it doesn't have to be that difficult. It can be as easy as, hey, Patsy, can we talk about how that meeting went? Or can we talk about how this episode went? I thought my expectations were different, and that kind of tweaked me a little bit. And let's just talk about it, so that I don't put myself in a prison and then make you pay for that later. What are you thinking?
Thinking we don't do let's get practical anymore, and yet there's some common denominators of creating a safe space.
Yep. For sure.
Recognizing that I care about you, I care about the team, I care about what we're up to.
Yep.
So it can be uncomfortable, irregardless of what part of the relationship you have. And I would somewhat disagree with choosing to put ourselves into that prison, that as human beings, we're kind of have a predetermination of going into that place. We can choose that we don't want to be there any longer, and then choose to learn how to get out. And that is a process of learning. Yeah. Except, what works with me may not work with you.
Maybe the common ground is, not that you know this, we don't always have to have common ground, but maybe the common ground is, maybe it's not a choice to go in there, but it is a choice to stay in there.
Yeah.
That's.
And I actually think common ground is essential, or common ground goes hand in hand with safety. If we don't know why, and if we don't, I guess the most basic human common ground is just that we're human beings, and we want, hopefully all of us want to bring our best selves to the work we do. So we're trying to learn and be together, Yes. So, but it is a counterintuitive move. And
this one really is.
And I would say find some resources.
Yeah.
We don't end up where we are because most of us intentionally choose to be there. We find ourselves there, and we need some resources to get out. And we have to have a lot of compassion for ourselves and for each other.
Yeah. Yes to everything that you said. That's, but I think to me, again, you said, we haven't done a Let's Get Practical in a while. If I were going to add to that list, I'd say, as a leader, meet passive aggression with genuine compassion, not silence, Or, okay, we're just going to ignore this and move on. I mean, what message does that send to the person who's frustrated? And you're like, okay, moving on. Like, in essence, you're saying, don't
I don't
care.
care.
Don't
I
care
don't
that you're
care.
all bottled
Right.
up. Yeah, don't care.
I can see
So,
my internal dialogue getting amped up.
yeah. So when you see it, lean in and meet it with compassion and create a space where that person can come out. And then when you find yourself in that place, recognize that, I mean, that's the question. So who do I need to have a conversation with to be able to deal with this in a way that gives voice to my frustration, strengthens the relationship, and moves us forward? You will find instances of passive aggression everywhere you have people, but on high performing teams, you will find every instance of passive aggression is met with an opportunity to deal with that conflict in a healthy way. That's what moves the teams forward. So it's not that high performing teams don't have these issues. It's that high performing teams recognize these issues are reasons to come together and enhance the relationship, right? They're opportunities to come together and more data in the pool, learn from each other, see each other, meet each other where you are, and move together forward.
Don't you think that what you just described, we've been talking about passive aggressive, which is a certain kind of behaviors. But any of the behaviors we're going to be addressing in this series are, you just described the foundation for all of them. They're going to have different nuances. But foundational is that we're both human beings trying to do the best we can.
Always.
And we just show up as not the best version of ourselves sometimes.
Yeah. Which is why I think it should be met with care and compassion.
Absolutely.
And not judgment.
Yep.
Or my own level of aggression, because it just reinforces the chaos. But B, I'm going to need that compassion from you, Patsy, when I have my next lose my shit moment, because I hate to tell you, if we work together long enough, I'm gonna.
We all are.
Right? And I still want to do my best. I still want to be part of something bigger than I think very few people wake up in the morning thinking, how can I derail the success of my team? It happens occasionally, but it's far more the exception than the rule.
You're reminding me of a point, and then I do think we need to close, that what you're talking about is a rippling effect, right? If something happens, it's not dealt with,
Yep.
then, and we mentioned this briefly earlier, but then there's ramifications. Like the incident you talked about where you lost your shit, that affected the whole team for a period of time.
It did.
And I was like, well, I wasn't the person, but so it has ramifications. So it goes back to what kind of culture are we trying to build? Do we know our core values? Are we living our core values? Are we committed to living our core values, even when it means I have to lean in to uncomfortable times?
Right. That's it.
Juicy topics.
Well, yeah, exactly. I thought what a great way to kick off a series on the hidden dynamics, the hidden relationship dynamics that are killing execution. I think, I'm excited to see where we go next.
Well, I have a growing list of those dynamics. So I think we will have good.
We'll have lots to talk about.
Lots to talk about.
Beautiful. All right. Well, listener, if you found this helpful, first of all, connect with both of us on LinkedIn. We love that. Actually, we really enjoy that. It's Patsy Feeman, Feeman. You know that by now. Patsy, you can find her on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. And if you found this episode valuable, I think our ask is share it with somebody who you know is either a leader trying to lead teams to execute better, who might need or who has shared with you the frustrations of passive aggression on the team, or if you know somebody who's in that prison, either lean in yourself to support them or share this. Maybe they hear their own solution for who they might need to have a conversation with, how they might release themselves from the prison. So engage with us, like and share. By the way, if you're listening and did not realize, you can find us on YouTube. So we'd love to see you there as well. Subscribe so that you can be notified whenever there's a new episode. Patsy, have you subscribed to our LinkedIn channel?
Yes.
Okay, good. I wasn't even sure if that was true or not. So awesome. Beautiful. All right. Well, I guess that's it. We'll see you next time on the Frustrated CEO podcast.